One.
Hey everybody, we're back again. It's Capes Cast Podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm right.
and today we are going to be talking about Fantastic Four issue number 19, wherever
Fantastic.
that's book 19, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to talk about the cover really quick.
Yeah.
This is like awesome cover, man.
It is.
It's so cool.
It is, man. And plus, like, it really does like show you that like Sue shines in this issue too. Like
Yeah,
she's just,
that's like the one thing I think about this run that's made it so good is
Mhm.
like everybody's had their time like in the
Yeah.
spotlight. Like Ben's gotten like his own issue, and he's gotten like standout moments in other issues. Johnny got his own issue. Alicia's gotten several where she's been like the hero of the story.
Including this
So
one.
yeah, including this one, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Or
pretty
like, and then in the two-part, uh, the Rock Monster one.
yeah. And then even the kids got their own.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. The kids too, yeah.
So
It's this,
North is like Ryan North is really covering all bases when it comes to the
yeah, it's
Fantastic
been
Four
tight.
family.
I mean, we've even gotten like Doom stuff,
Yeah.
you know. So it's like everything.
Yep.
Can't ask for much else, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've taken to calling this issue Fantastic Fuar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
uh
pretty much.
it's pretty cool, man. Like it's Carlos Gomez's art is just like awesome too. So
Yeah.
like I remember when this started, Andy Boncuello was like the main artist, and then when he left, I was like, man, I was like, I
Mhm.
like his art. So then when they announced that he was going to be the next series regular, I was like, oh, sweet, all right, because Coelho he left after the dinosaur arc, right?
I think so, yeah. That's what I was about to
Yeah.
say.
So yeah, when they announced it was going to take over Carlos Gomez, I was like, all right, cool. So like I never read the what was it, the Exterminators that he did.
Neither have I.
Um, who was it? It was like that like X-rated X book or whatever, where it was
Yeah,
like like maybe it was Jubilee like X-23 like Dazzler, all of those characters, but it was just like a grindhouse kind of.
right.
But yeah, I never read that. So, but I like the art that I saw from it. So I was like,
Mhm.
seems like a pretty good fit.
Right.
And yeah, like and especially with this being like primarily black and white and just like
Yeah.
mainly Sue being the standout with her
Yeah,
red
her like
dress.
lips and her dress are just what's red. Just pops.
Yeah.
I mean, technically it's like anything red pops out because technically the fire alarm's red, the red
Oh
mug.
yeah, that's true. And then like later on there's some blue in there too.
Yeah. It's we get to
And
why this is all like this, but
it's it's weird because like there are some books where like I feel like the narration is like kind of a lot.
yeah.
But in this, it just seems like it's just Alicia talking. So I don't mind it. Like it's
Right.
just fun to read.
Plus you
Like the
just
way
want
she
to
talks
you
to,
want to kind of know why this issue is this way.
yeah.
Like,
The opening is like probably one of my favorite bits where she like talks about Sue and how she's like beautiful and smart and all this, and then she's like, too bad for her, I'm blind.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. It's got that
It's
like
just
corny kind of like 19
yeah,
like 1940s noir humor.
yeah, it's like kind of campy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
She's like the damsel in distress. Oh my boyfriend is missing, the professor.
Yeah, she has like a Jessica Rabbit kind of look in this.
Yeah. And then they like go to the laboratory and it's Ben Grimm is
Mhm.
there.
Yeah,
He's
except he's
like
mobile.
her assistant, like her muscle.
Yeah,
And yeah, and so he's like scoping the place out. Man.
it's pretty funny because you could
Yeah.
just hear his voice too, and he's just like, yeah,
Yeah, like it's funny because I was kind of like making up voices in my head for this issue. Like, and I don't think that I've done that for like any of the issues in this run. Like, I've never had like a voice for them.
yeah,
But like in this issue, I kind of it kind of like I had a bit of one for like Alicia and Ben especially.
hmm
So yeah,
yeah. If
man,
you've seen enough crime like noirs, you can
yeah,
put a voice to. pretty funny. And then
Yeah, and then Johnny comes in
yeah.
and he's like the one that's like kind of sold out Reed or whatever. Or that's what they think, you know.
Mhm. It's like a I don't know, dude. This is like such like a New York crime noir. Like I want to read like Ryan North's like noir book next. You know, like
I almost I almost don't want to spoil this. You know what I mean?
right. Like yeah. Because it was fun. I kind of wish this went for like another issue, you know.
Yeah,
But
for sure. No, that would have been cool. Uh, but yeah, like I just want to tell everybody to go out and read this. That's really this is one of my favorite issues of the year so far.
yeah.
It was just so cool. Like, and I was telling a couple people at the shop, like, you don't even have to have read a single issue of this run, I feel like, to enjoy this
Right.
because it has like that very like Dick Tracy kind of, like like you said, like classic noir vibe.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and it's just with characters that a lot of us, most comic book fans like.
Right.
So, man, yeah, I'll spare a lot of the details in terms of like the actual like story content I want this time, just because like, man, I feel like everybody should give this one a try.
Yeah. The
If you
colors
like this,
are
just
really
read the
cool.
rest of the run.
Yeah, for sure. It's this is probably my favorite issue next to the dinosaur one.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
The Deviants realm is where they like head to. Um, is that that's Victor or no?
where
This like cop, is that supposed to be who's that supposed to be?
the cop talking to Alicia?
Yeah, uh King
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie. I wonder who that is.
I'm not sure.
Because like I'm pretty sure that all of these like characters that are named are have like a counterpart in the main.
Yeah.
So like,
Mackenzie,
man,
that just doesn't ring a bell.
yeah, because everybody else has their name, like
Right.
their actual name. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't know.
sure.
He just gave me that like,
Like I'm important type
yeah,
of character. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's why I was like, God, might be Doom. Like, yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure.
the other thing too, is like I like how he just took like kind of like the main cast and threw them in and gave them all their role.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I could just stare at this art itself
Yeah.
for
I also really like that it's like none of them are like have their powers.
yeah.
It's just strictly like just a plain old
Well,
and
that's
I
what's great
and the
about it.
reason
'Cause it's
for
just Alicia being awesome. Like
yeah,
she
dude, yeah,
is
it's so cool, man.
like nobody needs powers when Alicia's just figuring everything out.
Yeah.
Which
So
she's
like
being she this is like a consistent thing in this run. It's her figuring stuff out and
yeah,
fixing things.
it's a Fantastic Five, man.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
it's to like go back when they find Johnny. Um, he's like being blamed for this and he's like, he's in danger because he's like in over his head with somebody, right?
Mm,
Uh and then when he kidnaps Alicia and he blindfolds her.
yeah,
I love all of those jokes in this book because it's just like they're good ones, man.
yeah. Like it's almost yeah. It's like
It's
they
like
basically
Johnny Storm, you're no good at this. You blindfolded a blind woman.
yeah. That's hilarious. There's a couple blind jokes like that in here where it's like
Yeah,
clever.
yeah,
It's clever.
and they're all like pretty clever, man. They're
Yeah.
good ones. And then like he fakes his death or whatever.
Hmm.
And then they discover that it was Pete Petresky is the one who is behind it all, is the one who
Right.
kidnapped the professor.
Hmm.
Um, and then they go to this like abandoned apartment building, it kind of looks like, and they find Reed,
Yeah.
and he's like in
Bottled
color,
up.
yeah, all bottled up, and he's got a force field around him.
Mm,
So, and he's like trying to tell them, like, hey, the trapster is the one that did all this, like, blah, 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 blah,
right.
blah. Yeah. So, like, there's like a twist at the end, and you find out that, the trapster has found a cosmic cube, and he's used it to rewrite reality
Right.
into this like old school crime noir world.
Right.
And in like a last ditch effort, Sue dropped a force field around, um
Read.
and it's been slowly wearing off.
Right.
And it's like when they arrive like just in time, and then they watch him transform into which is like both like kind of like funny, but also like, oh, you know,
Right. Because then they're
because
just
he's
be
like,
like, Professor Richards, there you are. We, yeah, okay. You
yeah,
know, it's like
because I
super.
think he's like, yeah, like he's like, I beg you, wield it, wish for things to return to the way they were before Pete changed things before, and he's all like, my darling Susie, she must have sent you both. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, and then out pops the villain with his gun.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, like and then the mix up, and then Alicia ends up finding it, you know,
Right.
and of course she saves the day, which, hey man, it's good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. It's been a thing. And then we get back to normal
Yeah,
reality.
and they're still like they're kind of like after effects
Right.
of it, you know, and it's just like in how they talk and how they're like interacting on the ride home.
Yeah.
And she even like referenced like the last couple lines like here at the end where she's like, well, even if he did, I'm sure the four of you would have handled it. Even against a giant, Sue, you're still trouble. All 5 foot 6 inches of you.
Yeah.
And that's what she said like in the very beginning. Like she's like she
Right.
came in trouble all 5 feet 6 inches of it, you know.
Right.
So it's I don't know. It was just really and it's like it's just well written.
Yeah.
Like it's just a good issue.
Yeah. And it was just like a one-off quick
Yeah.
issue, just, and Ryan North's been doing that lately where it's just 1 to 2 to 3 issue arcs. That's it.
Yeah, which like and I know I've seen some complaints about how like they just like we're almost 20 issues in and there's like no clear, concise thing. Like overarching plot. I mean, there is with the shield
Sure.
stuff and them
Yeah.
kind of keeping an eye on them. But like I'm kind it's weird because like with most books, I kind of like the idea of there being like a pretty clear plot and
Right.
like moving along and getting to the end, you know? But like with this, I don't know, it just feels like classics, like more Silver Age style
Yeah.
storytelling, which like I don't know, man. Like a lot of the Marvel books feel that way right now. Like they just feel a lot. They just like Doctor Strange feels like just classic, like a classic feel, you know.
Right.
Fantastic Four feels that way. Incredible Hulk kind of has that vibe going on with like the horror, with the horror stuff.
Yep.
Um, you know, I don't know, man. I want them to move along with the plot, but I also really enjoy the fact that we're just getting these random stories that get to like we get to see them just like think outside the box, flex their powers a little bit, and do all this cool stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of like the Jack and Stan days where it was just like
Yeah,
where it was just you never knew what wacky thing they were going to get into next. It was
right.
always like this week something wacky or this month something wacky. And I like it because it does still have that overarching plot, like that one time where they had like those 12 issues where they did like 3 arcs and it was like, hey, it's been a year. Or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So Ryan North does
Which I mean, I guess we're still technically getting now with the Nick Scratch
right,
thing and Franklin, you know.
right.
So he obviously there's probably some plan, you know. Otherwise, because every couple issues we get a new seed planted, you know, or development on something that started in the beginning of the run.
Right.
So there's probably some bigger overarching story, and it's just not clear yet, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm because I'm enjoying each issue, not
Yeah.
because I need it to be like not because I need this ongoing story every month, but because they're just all well written, they're all fun, entertaining, they're well drawn. Like it's just like it's just they're just good comics.
Yeah. And it's just fun. Like Fantastic
Yeah.
Four should just be wacky fun. Like that's how it should be.
Yep.
I mean, you have Hickman who did different things, made it,
Yeah.
and you have Grant Morrison that made it like a drama and stuff like that. But to me, this is like the roots. Like he's really
Yeah.
getting back to the roots of everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm I would be sad to see North get off this book eventually, but I would love to see what he does next too. So
Yeah, like it's weird because like I like with a lot of these books, I feel like I find myself like I'm not that I'm expecting a relaunch for some of these titles, but sometimes I'm just like if I see an announcement and there's like a new a new number one for Doctor Strange or Fantastic Four or like whatever, like I'm almost not surprised anymore.
right,
You know, like if it comes to an end in like 10 issues, they're like, oh, 30 is our last issue. I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. But like what I'm not gonna like be mad about it because it just happens all the time now. Like there's just no reason to be like, oh, like yeah, like it blows, and I probably won't if it's not a good creative team, I just won't read it.
right.
But
But
like,
even seeing Fantastic Four at book 19 is rare these
yeah.
days. Like that's
Well,
how
like Slot's run, which was before this, ran for like almost 50 issues.
right.
And God, it was a long 50 issues, bro. Like,
Well, I mean, they kind of just do that with Slot, right? They just here you can stay on this title for 5 years. Like
yeah,
he's the longest running Spidey
that's true.
title.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
He's the one that's written Spidey the most out
Yeah,
of
he
it.
wrote him for like what, 12 years or something?
Yeah. So
Well,
he
longer now because of all the stuff he's been doing with Spider-Man and Spider-Boy.
yeah, and Superior and
Yeah.
yeah, dude, it's crazy. So it
Hey,
makes sense to
at
me
least
why
it's not
they
as bad as the spider who gobbles, all right?
yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, it makes sense to me that like Marvel would be like, all right, since you're gonna be with us for a long time, you could just sit here and write.
Yeah, I don't know. It sucks, man. So there are some books where I'm like, keep it short, keep it sweet, and give me like 5 to 10 issues, and I'm good.
Right,
But like then there are books that I feel like they need some like all the mainline books, like your Thor, Iron Man. Like I don't think that Iron Man has had a run that's cracked over 30 issues in like years.
right.
You know what I mean? Like Dan Slott's Tony Stark Iron Man, I'm pretty sure went to 20. You know,
I think
the
Cantwell's only went to like 25.
yeah, it didn't even make 30. Like this run is ending at 20, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
The current run, or maybe in a couple more issues after that. But like doesn't make
I
any
mean,
sense. Like Captain America too. Like Captain America is another household name now, and
right,
like it's crazy to me like that, and it has to be like a moolah thing,
for
because
sure.
they know that they can. I know that there's the argument of well we can always get a new like jumping on point for this, like a jumping on point for that, but like you could yes, but they don't ever capitalize on it. Like there's never like any opportunity between like we'll use X-Men for an example, like the last time you could jump in on X-Men was 2019
Right,
without having to read everything up from 2019 to wherever you jumped on at.
right. Well, my problem
Like
with that is not just that it's a long run; it's a long run of like 8 titles.
right, like and I mean and this I mean I've kind of tangented off from what I was like my sub like what I was talking about, but like X-Men is a like flagship series for Marvel and they let that book run for a long time. Why can't you let all of the other titles run like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's a team book, and I understand that you can get a little bit more length out of a team book than you can a solo title. But
right,
like, and then that's a creative issue.
right. Because they did
Like
that for Jason Aaron.
yeah, Jason Aaron had yeah, exactly. Like Jason Aaron, I think was the last time we saw anybody take on a character other than Dan Slott. Or like somebody like Claremont or like Peter David or like
Right.
some that were like on these characters for a like significant length of time. Like and even if it is just 50 issues, like I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because that's still like 4 or 5 years of storytelling, with events and tie-in issues and one shots here and there. That's gonna crack over 50.
Right. Well, say what you will, like, I have issues with Nightwing, but like I'd love the fact that it's still going.
Right.
It's
Yeah, and that's something I've complained a lot about Nightwing in the past. Like I dropped it. I'm not reading it anymore. I have no intentions of reading it at the end. But like if to its credit, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be almost 120 issues without a title relaunch.
yeah.
But and here's the thing is and they've had creative team changes with clear jumping on points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's something I'll give to DC's credit any time of the week, you know?
Right,
Like they did it with Flash. You know, you get the end of Barry Allen with Williamson, you get that short arc with Kevin Shinnick, and then you get Adams. And it's a clear starting point because Wally's back as the Flash. It's an again kind of like a run through the Flash mythos with him dropping in and out of like quantum leaping through speedsters.
right,
You know, like if anything, DC's handled a lot of those like fresh starts or like, jumping on points way better than Marvel has.
right.
So like, yeah, and they've managed to do it with a few titles and without relaunching and just say, here you go,
Yeah, because
which
Batman's at what, like 140, like
yeah, it's almost going
146,
to be 150.
147. Yeah,
Yeah,
and they haven't rebooted it since Tom King started
right,
his rebirth. So,
right, and that was two initiatives ago.
right,
Three, I guess, if you don't count when it was DC Universe again after
right,
Rebirth. Like it that I think is the like part of Marvel's my problem with a lot of Marvel books. Like, okay, and I'll use another title for example right now, like or two books. You have Rainbow Rowell's She-Hulk.
right.
That didn't need a relaunch.
It's had like two relaunches so far, hasn't it?
Well, it went through just She-Hulk and that went 15, and now we're on Sensational.
Okay.
But it's literally just a continuation of the previous run. Like
Right. Well, Steve Orlando's dealing with that too with Scarlet Witch.
and that was the next book I was going to mention was like his Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
His Scarlet Witch went 10 issues. Now it's Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, which is basically Scarlet Witch 11 through 14.
Right.
And then in June, it's relaunching again with another number one.
Right.
And it's just like I can imagine it's frustrating for the creators too,
Yeah.
because like always being like, oh, I don't know. Like they told me it's over at 10, but hey, in a couple months they could tell me it's getting a mini series to continue or finish. Like,
Right. Because it's more like now, like we got to see how it sells. So we're gonna see how you do for the first six issues, and by the fourth issue,
right,
we'll tell you.
right. Which is like I don't like that, man, because like you don't give any creators and I feel like that's another problem too, is like some of these creators could have good ideas, but they're given 5 issues, or they're given 10 issues. So they never get the opportunity to actually like plant any really solid like storytelling stuff
Right.
and let it pay off later on. And then they have to cram whatever cool idea they might have had into a mini series. And more times than not, it ends up just being like, okay,
Right.
because a lot of these concepts should have had room to breathe and they don't even get that. And I feel like that works against your writers too, is like you're not letting them like flex a little bit, and maybe learn to be more creative. So you're not just getting these pop off like you get these writers who have one good story in them and then it's bam, that's it. And everything, and because it was sold pretty well, they now are like getting other work and it's not what the first book was.
Right. And I'm
So I
sure.
see that a couple of times too.
Right. And I'm sure it keeps the morale low over at Marvel.
Yeah.
They're probably like,
Like,
damn.
and I mean, obviously this is all speculation, but it's like it I just feel like it happens a lot, and like for it to happen this much and it'd be like we all see it.
Right. Meanwhile, we have Amazing Spider-Man just going along.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's funny, man, because that's like a book that everybody has been very vocal about not enjoying.
Exactly.
And it's the one book that they refuse to acknowledge. Like they refuse to acknowledge anything about it.
No.
Well, like, okay, there's this, for example. Ultimate Spider-Man sold twice as many copies as the last issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
And that's probably been that way since the first issue. So that's 4 months of probably consistent releases. And Ultimate and Amazing Spider-Man releasing twice a month.
Right.
So like, okay, I guess we can get into speculation territory now. If do you think the reason why they're dropping it 2 times a month is because it keeps technical monthly sales numbers propped up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
aversion to
Because I mean, ASM is still in the top 10.
right, and
So,
it never and it will always be. But
right.
like, you know what I mean? With that switch to bi-monthly, and it's been that way for a long time. I wonder if it's just almost like a way for them to be like, hey, it's still selling almost the same numbers as Ultimate Spider-Man. It's like, well, not per issue, but per month it is.
Right. But look how many people, like, for example, come into the shop and they're like, man, I'm buying this. I don't like it, but whatever. I buy all
Right.
Spider-Man.
I mean, and I have people that come in and they're like, "Hey, man, like I haven't read comics since the original Ultimate Spider-Man. I want a copy of this, or can I get on this?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah, there's a
Like you're gonna have
giant
to
way
find
to
them
start.
online, but
Yeah.
like yeah, like it's brought people that either have never read a comic or haven't read comics in a long time into the hobby.
Right.
And Amazing Spider-Man, couldn't do that.
Right.
It's just
And the optics
weird,
of it
man.
too, because what did this ASM lead to? It led to basically Miss Marvel getting changed, and now it led to Mary Jane getting powers. Who the hell is buying Jackpot? Like who? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Why are we wasting our time with these little things that we know nobody's going to read? We know that title's going to get canceled.
right. Yeah,
So why are we wasting our time here instead of you putting more of your effort to your writers that are actually having a long game
yeah,
with what they're writing? You know,
right.
because it's almost like, I do this a lot with DC, but I do it a lot with Marvel too, where I'm reading the solicitations and I'm just eye rolling
Yeah,
because like, and how many times do we get like, okay, this is issue 2 out of 6, and then it's like, oh, you're selling good, so you're ongoing, and it's like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, and DC is a big offender of that,
yeah,
you know. And I- and I feel like even they haven't taken advantage of that in the way that they should. Like Green Arrow, I think was pretty obviously intent. I think that's a weird one because it almost seems like that their intention was always to like maybe have an ongoing in the cards, but they weren't sure.
right,
So they were just like, Williamson, okay, tell whatever story you're gonna tell as long as you can tie it into Waller and then do all this stuff, then that's fine. But then people were so excited that he even got a miniseries after years
right,
that they're like, literally day one, dude. Day one, when issue one came out, they're like, oh, it's 12 issues now.
right,
So it's like, all right, like, okay. And then like issue 6 or 7 comes out, and they're like, oh, solicitations come out today too, and bam, it's ongoing.
yeah,
So it's like either that was like a plan from the get-go and they were just testing the waters with sales and it projected like they thought it would, or it really was just them being like on the fly and saying, hey, maybe he's got more story to tell and he can keep tying it into everything else.
right. Because that's exactly what happened with Poison Ivy as well.
Yeah,
Poison Ivy was
yeah,
supposed to be like, I think, like 12 issues, and
yeah, yeah.
they,
Now it's ongoing.
yeah, and
And like yeah, and then I feel like there were other titles like those like City Boy,
oh
um,
yeah, the
The
Vigil,
Vigil, and the Spirit World.
yeah,
I feel like those, but I don't remember those books ever being solicited as 6 issue miniseries.
right.
But they just all of a sudden in solicitations, oh, this is the last issue, their miniseries.
Oh,
So like,
really?
yeah,
I didn't know they were in it.
I don't remember ever seeing them being solicited as 6 issues. So and from what I read of those, they were pretty good. Like they were nothing like super The Vigil, I think, might have been my favorite.
Right,
And even then, like I got to 3 issues in on each, and I was like, man, like I could just not read them and it wouldn't like affect me.
right,
I didn't feel like I was missing out.
exactly. I think a
So
lot of people felt that way.
yeah, and like another thing too is I feel like maybe because like side books like Sideways, Damage, Sleeper or whatever that book was called, like or The Silencer, like all of those all those like new age of metal, like the Heroes books that came out
Yeah,
after Metal, all of those got canned within like 20 issues of its start.
sure.
So it's like you like why even bother creating these new heroes if you're really just not even going to give them the opportunity to shine?
Right,
And then, and then like we'll use Sideways as as an example. Like the dude doesn't get picked up unless it's by Bendis in Young Justice for like a couple issues.
yeah,
And he was cool, man. Sideways was just cool, and I feel like he could still have a place in the DC universe, but nobody gives a shit about him.
right. And it kind of makes me sad because like Rom V was saying that he had the idea for the Vigil for his own creator owned stuff, and he was
Yeah,
gonna, and then they finally came to him. They're like, "Hey, we're doing this kind of like Asian themed month. Do you have like a
yeah,
character that would fit?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." So imagine like you created this character, and you're like, okay, instead of doing a creator-owned series on it, I'm gonna put him in Gotham. I'm gonna, and then basically and then DC's just like, all right, cool. Thanks for the 8 issues. Now you're done with that. And he
Yeah,
probably thinking like, damn it, I
yeah.
could have made like a, like
And
a
it's
20 issue
interesting
series out of
because
that.
like his exclusive announcement came shortly after that book started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So like I wonder if that had something to do with it. And because he had signed that exclusive deal, he was like, I could just put it out through DC and then that's it.
Right.
And I don't know, and maybe he probably would have had a longer story to tell if it had been
Exactly.
independent, you know? Like I don't know. That's just like a
Exactly.
hypothetical, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which if even still like the prospect of him like maybe developing this idea like in his own world, getting not having to use DC property and just getting to kind of like do whatever he wanted would have been cool. But like now we'll never get it
Yeah.
because they're
I'm
DC
sure we'll
characters.
get Vigil behind the scenes in some parts and editor's
Yeah.
notes, and
Yeah, or they'll show up in like Doom Patrol,
yeah.
or they'll show up in like a random Outsiders issue when that gets like 3 relaunches from now.
Or a random tie-in to one of the events that they have.
Yeah.
Because they have like 10 tie-ins to each event.
Yeah, and Super Absolute Power coming in 2035.
Yeah. It's gonna be,
Absolute Crisis coming.
yeah. I mean, that's probably eventual because they did announce this absolute
Yeah,
line.
I guess we can talk about that for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So like, and it's weird because DC hasn't made an official announcement, so I wonder if they're waiting until Comic-Con.
Could be. Could be. But the thing that stands out to me is like I feel like Mark Wade like let a little bit of things slide that he probably shouldn't have said on that latest interview of Word Balloon that
Oh, yeah, the one where he talks about absolute power and how like everybody else had a crack at it.
I think that, and because we didn't really know Scott Snyder was back at DC. We didn't know.
Yeah, because he had just been doing his creator own stuff, like the Dark Spaces for a long time, and he did like finish up Noctera like a year or so ago.
Right.
So
So it
yeah.
seems like everybody had this, which I think it is a tall order to rake in everything big that's going on in DC, talk about all of it, and then do it this story in 4 issues that also sets up a universe. Like that's a tall
Do
order.
we know for sure if Absolute Power will set up the Absolute Comics line?
It has
I
to.
mean, I right, and based off like the logo that I saw, Absolute DC or whatever they showed, and that could have just been put together by somebody at Bleeding Cool or whatever site that I saw it on.
Right. Because I
But
feel like
like,
this is like the ultimate invasion event for the absolute, universe.
dude, oh, does that mean we'll get rid of Amanda Waller and we'll kick her over to the Absolute universe?
I don't know, man. I was reading that Suicide Squad Dream Team, and it shows her like taking pills and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah, she's tripping, man.
yeah, I'm like, okay, whatever.
That's
But
that's why she hired Roy.
yeah, to get his drugs and yeah, what a junkie. What a junkie.
She's like, listen here.
Mm,
She's like, I won't kill your family as long as you give me a fix.
right. And this is like it says on it that it's setting up absolute power, and it I
Mhm.
don't see anything being set up here. And I'm 2 issues in, and it's 4 issues.
Hey man, how else are they gonna sell that book?
Yeah. Well, Harley's on the cover, dude.
Oh,
That but I don't know. I'm excited if this
okay,
is true.
okay,
If this is true
yeah.
with Scott
If
Snyder,
it's true, I will probably check out some of those books. I mean,
right?
hell, they might be better than some of the current. I mean, see, that's a tough. It's funny because I was reading a lot when Dawn of DC started, but I feel like I've like definitely like tapered off.
Yeah. I mean, which ones are still going that were like the original Dawn of DC stuff?
Flash, well, I guess Flash, Wonder Woman,
Green Lantern,
Super Green Lantern, Superman, War Journal. I am
Wardrobe.
reading more than I thought, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because some of them were minis, and that's why it feels like less now.
And
Probably.
I think because you were popping in on Batman here and there, and you stopped reading Nightwing.
Yeah, good point. Good
You know,
point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
so it could be that. But for the most part, I think Dawn of DC has been doing a pretty good job staying and
Yeah,
building what they have. With whether it's the United Planets happening with a couple titles, or
that's
you know,
all I care about, dude. That's literally all I care about. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, all of the stuff that's happening on Earth, I could not give a shit about.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so boring to me, man. Like,
Yeah.
the only way it's going to be interesting is if you let Harley Quinn and Amanda Waller fight to the death.
Right.
Put them, yeah, let me do it. Let me see it. I'll cheer for one of them. I don't know
Right.
which one, but I'll cheer for one of them. Throw Joker in there too. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't care. Dude, just like give me like a Royal Rumble style match with all of the villains that are in the stupid book. Brainiac Queen, Zura-Nar, Harley Quinn.
Yeah. But it also makes me wonder if like this what like what does this mean for the absolute universe? Like what is it
I don't know, man.
like why? Like cuz the other like cuz Ultimate Invasion made sense. Like the Maker would go off
Yeah,
and do that. Like that's totally in his character. What's going to create this absolute universe?
that's a good question, man. I don't know.
Like I don't even know what they could do for that.
Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell.
And yeah, because like I'm trying to think of stuff, and I can't really think of anything that would incite that like it's like what would happen, like how that would happen, how like a maker level event would come about, to do that. If that's what the plan is, like if absolute power is like a direct lead into whatever the absolute line is, if that's the case, then I don't know how they're gonna do that. But if it's just like a original Ultimate Universe where it's just like brand new and fresh and starting from somewhere else, like count me in. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, same.
We'll just see how it goes, I guess.
For sure.
But
Yeah,
we got like a minute left, man.
exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in again. We're gonna be back next week. Rocks on Thor, I think for sure.
Hell yeah. Let's do
Bro,
it.
it was pretty funny. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about because it was super deep and meta and all that stuff too. So
Can't
all right,
wait.
guys. Peace out. Later.
Later on, guys.